Well, hello there. Welcome to my Final Fantasy VII Remake episode Intermission AGDQ 2022 submission video. My name is DutchPotato, and this is a DLC speedrun of the PS5 port Final Fantasy VII Remake, where you get to play as Yuffie, a previously unplayable character. Now, with it being a DLC run, it's definitely on the shorter end compared to both the main game speedrun as well as most Final Fantasy speedruns, but that doesn't mean it lacks any of the depth that the main game is. Overall, a fairly short but fast-paced speedrun. Today we're playing the normal 80% difficulty category. Easy is a little bit faster than normal, but easy, normal, and hard are actually all their own separate categories because they're actually fairly different to each other. My personal preference is normal, hence why we'll be playing it today. So time starts on difficulty selection. I'll count down. 3, 2, 1. Go. What you're going to notice right away is the load times are very fast in this game. Again, adding to the fast pace, and we have a fight almost right away. But before that, I'm going to do a quick menu to make sure I have all the materia and customizers set that I want to make these first couple fights go a little bit faster. Now, the main objective of these first 4 fights is to actually get a dance animation skip, which we actually got right there. This little dance she does at the start of at the end of these first 4 fights. Case in point, and it wastes about 4 seconds. It's not a huge deal, obviously, for a marathon run. Can be quite a big deal for going for PB pace, but again, it's still not a big deal, but we still obviously want to go for it. Overall, this skip is kind of finicky. It's mostly based on your position to the enemies and the position of your shuriken, so it's very hard to control since we can't really directly control exactly what our enemies are doing, but we do have specific strats to at least increase the chance of us getting the skip. Overall, the core combat of this game consists of ATB attacks and regular attacks. ATB attacks are your more powerful attacks, for example, the Ice Ninjutsu I did and the Windstorm I just did there. And these deal the most damage in your repertoire, however they require ATB, which is built by using your standard attacks. First of all, we're also just going to do a little quick save and load here, and that actually skips the elevator animation, again because the load times are so fast. But yeah, overall, combat consists of using a different variety of regular attacks such as deadly dodge, as we're going to do here. Uh-oh, gotta dodge. Ooh, that could have been bad. In order to build ATB as well as group up enemies, and then use Ice Ninjutsu to finish off the enemies. Now we actually acquired the Elemental Ninjutsu ability there. Certain ATB actions are actually tied to weapons. For example, Elemental Ninjutsu is tied to the starting shuriken we have, and you can't actually use that ATB action without that weapon equipped unless we increase the proficiency, which we just did by using Ice Ninjutsu on all 4 of those Gorgas, both in the second fight and in that last fight there. Naturally, this means we can now use this pretty powerful ability on other shurikens, other weapons, which is definitely helpful for later in the run. But for now, we're still going to keep the starting shuriken on since it's all we have. Now we've got the final fight of the junkyard, the wolves fight. This is going to be an incredibly fast fight, but the wolves also like to dodge your attacks a lot, so it never goes quite as simple as you want, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I also got a minor glitch there where the action, uh-oh, that could be bad. Actually just get a restart checkpoint. Again, it's so fast. We're going to do a perfect parry, which will give us ATB enough to do Blizzara. And the second wolf tries to attack us as we use the Blizzara, which ends up getting it caught in the Blizzara and actually ends up one-shotting both the wolves, so that was a pretty nice fight. Unfortunately, again, the very minor glitch where the game just won't let you actually jump off that construction equipment. I'm not even sure what it is. It's just a conspicuously placed line for Yuffie to jump on, but overall the second fight at least, was fairly good. And overall the jump guard was okay. Definitely nothing to write home about, but what's coming up next actually is probably the biggest run killer. Again, not a huge deal in a marathon, obviously in a PB run. You can lose about 20 seconds, that's obviously not great for a run of this length, but obviously for a marathon run it doesn't matter too much. But it's Fort Condor. It's a pretty fun minigame casually. Unfortunately there's no way to skip the tutorial for the speedrun, and like I said, it's pretty much all RNG, which makes it very not fun for speedruns. But we'll just have to adapt based on what RNG it gives us. Pretty good items right at the start here. You normally start off with 5 high potions, but we got 2 regular potions and 1 extra high potion. Item management isn't a huge problem in this run. You overall get more or less enough high potions to keep yourself healed up. But the reason we do need to keep an eye on items isn't just because we're afraid of dying, but because we actually get an accessory later that actually increases our damage based on how high our HP is. So we, in general, want to stay topped off whenever we can. Alright, now we're done with talking to ZG. We unfortunately do have a few more conversations. But the first person we're going to talk to is Polk. He's again going to give us the 4 Condor minigame, which we'll want to do first. Try to get it over and done with, see what RNG he gives us. The main aspect of the RNG that's important is where the guard dog is in our starting placement. We want him to be in the first 5 of our units, otherwise things can get a little messy. Oh wow, he's actually right at the top. That's actually perfect. We're going to start here, wait, see what the enemy summons. Then we're going to summon our guard dog and also use the fire materia on this tower. We're also going to summon a grenadier. The objective of Fort Condor is to summon units in order to beat these towers. And the main objective is the middle tower. However, you're generally not going to be able to beat the middle tower without beating one of the 2 towers. Fortunately, that shield enemy actually decided to kill my guard dog, but that doesn't make a huge difference because we can thankfully summon another one right away. And he should be able to finish off the main tower fairly quickly. Okay, that was definitely on the slower side again since our guard dog died, but again, not a huge issue. But unfortunately we have quite a bit of talking now, with no real way to speed up except for just mashing through it, so now is definitely the best time for some donations if we have any. Now unfortunately we don't have actually any donations here, but I guess I'll just have to fill some dead space. Hello, it's me. I'm cool, please take my submission video, please accept me, please. I don't know what that was supposed to be, anyway. Again, not a lot to do here, just mostly mashing. On the upcoming bit, there's a choice of 2 people to talk to. We do want to talk to the happy turtle guy on the left first, and then talk to Charlie second, mostly just for movement more than anything. Again, not a lot to talk about here. So yeah, now would be the perfect time for donations.
Come to think, people call him, and he doesn't. Might be from. I gotta find him. Man deserves some detalking. All this talking's giving me a headache. I'm gonna go do some recon.
Yes, you feel all this talking is giving you a headache, so let's go do some more talking. Yay! Alright, happy turtle guy, what do you got?
Ring any bells?
Nope.
Well then, the happy and the rules, and you learn. Sadly, some of
I think you can quite hear it, but the happy turtle jingle is a real bop, I gotta say. The music in this game in general is really fantastic. Definitely a highlight of the DLC. Although it's also a highlight in the main game as well, but it's definitely nice to know that they didn't skip on the bangers in the DLC.
My name is Chad.
I'm Yuffie. So
Combat. Very well then.
So the reason we want to talk to Charlie second is we need Yuffie to be done talking here before we can actually interact with this door here. And if we talk to Charlie first, then we actually have to wait for her. But either way, finally done with most of the talking, although there is a little bit more coming up. Thankfully, we have our first and actually only party member, Sonen Kasakabe. He actually works fairly uniquely. Unlike the main game, you actually can't control him like you can other party members get in the main game. Now, that might sound a little annoying at first, and it can be, but overall, there's actually a lot of unique ways we can affect how he attacks enemies. So, first of all, there's a thing called Synchronization Attacks, where basically you sync up with Sonen and he attacks whoever you're attacking at the same time. That's a very powerful mechanic that actually doesn't let you build up as much ATB, but lets you do more damage with your regular attacks, and also really builds up the stagger gauge, which the stagger gauge is something that we saw a little bit before, but it wasn't really a hugely important aspect of those first couple fights. But basically, when you put your enemies into stagger, they take 1.6 times damage and are completely unable to move. So as you can imagine, that's a very powerful mechanic that we'll be using, and you can even actually increase that 1.6 times multiplier all the way up to 240 and perhaps even more, but we don't bother going beyond 2.4%. Wait, 204, 2.4? Maths are hard, words are hard. The point is, if your enemy is staggered, you do big damage. And synchronized attacks are a very quick and easy way to get to that, as we'll be seeing in the upcoming fight.
They used to be with Avalanche, but left after a policy dispute.
Having Sonen in our party also gives us access to team-up attacks, which are again also very powerful, but they require 1 ATB for both Yuffie and Sonen, and they're very much worth it though. But obviously, again, since we don't have direct control of Sonen, building his ATB can be a little bit annoying, but again, thankfully we have strats in place to make that as painless as possible. Now, coming up, we want to wait for Nayo to touch this gate. Oh, shoot. Oops. Now we want to do another save and load. Admittedly, I don't think it saved any time because I screwed up the menu, but what this is going to do is actually stop the conversation between Nayo and Yuffie. And so while we do still have to wait for Nayo to get to our next location, normally you would have to sit there and wait for her to finish the conversation before you could actually proceed, but instead we can just continue as normal almost right away, so saves a little bit of time. Alright, so now we have the Corneo Lackey fight. It's a fairly finicky fight. It's mainly based on what your opponents do, but basically want to do 2 daily dodges and react to based on what they give us. Oh, unfortunately. And nice, okay. We got them all up. Now we want to do the synchronized attacks. That was unfortunately very sloppy, but we use daily dodge to pull them all together and put them into pressure, and then we use sync attacks to get them into stagger. And then we used a Sync Art of War, which is a very powerful attack on its own, while they're all in stagger to immediately one-shot them. Again, that was very sloppy. Unfortunately, the way that fight works is daily dodge can suck them up and put them into pressure, which is obviously very good, but if they're in the middle of attack, it doesn't actually work. And so they ended up attacking and then being fairly spread out, so a little unfortunate, but overall, not too bad, I guess. Up next, we're going to pick up a chest, which is going to have a Board of Friendship, which is a very powerful accessory that we want to equip to Sonen. So those sync ATB attacks that I talked about, like with Sync Art of War, like I said, they normally require 1 ATB from both Sonen and Yuffie, but by equipping this to Sonen, it actually only requires half an ATB for Sonen, which is very helpful. We're going to equip that in just a little bit, but first we want to run alongside Nayo. Now she's really picking up the pace. We're not walking anymore, we're running, lads. It feels great. We want to go meet up with ZG, the guy we met up with when we first entered Midgar, because he's in a spot of trouble. Also, absolute banger. This chase music, love it. Like I said, we have a menu coming up. Just gotta focus for that. Alright, so what we did there is we upgraded our weapons and set them to auto prioritize attack, which means they'll just level up on their own. We don't have to mess around with them anymore. We also equipped the Catherian armlet onto Yuffie. That's not hugely important right now, but it will be important later. We also equipped the Kindred Cord again onto Sonnen, like we said I was going to before. But we also equipped the Ninja armlet onto Sonnen, which boosts the ATB of any materia equipped into that armlet, which is very important because we want the first strike materia, which we have equipped there, to level up as fast as possible. Alright, now we have a Projector Fight. Unfortunately, again, decided to attack right away, but not a huge deal. Alright, decent enough fight. What we also equipped to Sonnen was a thing called Synergy. It's a blue materia that can be combined with any elemental materia, whether it be fire, blizzard, thunder, wind. We currently have it equipped with fire, and basically means whenever we do an ATB action, he will follow up with that element, as we'll see in a second here. I'm going to use a windstorm, and someone's going to follow up with fire, which is very powerful against those officers. We now want to try to... I could have thrown it in between the crack, but it's a little finicky there. But overall, decent first start to the hangar. But yeah, like I was saying, the Synergy materia is very powerful. If you actually played the base game, and you know your materias, you might know that in the base game, Synergy materia was very bad. It basically, what it did, is whenever you did an ATB action, the character it was equipped to would then obviously follow up with, again, the element, except the difference is that it will require a full ATB and would use the same amount of MP anyway. So, because you can pause the game and go into the ATB menu and just choose the spell, it doesn't really, it's basically worthless, and so as a result, when the DLC came out, they decided to buff it. And so now, with the Synergy materia, Sonnen gets a completely free spell cast as a follow-up to our ATB action. It doesn't require any ATB, doesn't require any MP to use, so it's an incredibly powerful materia now. Went from one of the most worthless to one of the most powerful. Alright, now we have the Horned Projector Fight. We want to basically build stagger and try to get a perfect parry on him. Unfortunately, he gave us a pretty bad attack, but it's not a huge issue. That's also really bad. And then he attacks Son, and this fight is a complete disaster, I must admit. So, normally he's supposed to attack us. We're supposed to be able to perfect parry it, which will actually give us a lot of ATB, and then also build stagger, but unfortunately that didn't happen, so fight was definitely on the slow end. But overall, again, could have been worse. We now pick up the Steel Reaper. That's the shuriken that we're going to replace our current shuriken with, and that we're basically going to have for the rest of the run. The ATB was a little bad on this fight as well, unfortunately. But right now, while we're in the middle of a cutscene that we can't skip, we want to have Sonnen heal us up to full. We can use items with Sonnen without actually slowing us down at all. If we use an item, Yuffie will actually be stuck in animation, but we can make Sonnen thankfully heal us up to full. And the reason we want to be up to full is because we got a Gozu drive, which, as I said before, is that equipment piece that will actually increase our damage based on our HP. So we're going to equip that and our new shuriken in just a second. Very nice. It'll come in very in handy here. You want to start off with a full combo and then cancel it with block, and then doing a bunch of attack cancels, which will put him into pressure. Come on, there we go. We now want to do Sync Windstorm, which actually builds his stagger while he's in stagger. Oh, come on, I want to throw out a Blizzard as well. Alright, that fight was a little sloppy, but it worked. Sync Windstorm is, again, another sync attack that requires an ATB from both me and Sonon. But as a result, it is very powerful, and again, on staggered enemies, as we just saw, will actually build their stagger. So we built it all the way up to 240%, and then we used a Blizzara, which that dog is actually weak to, and so it's a very strong Blizzard attack while he's taking 240% damage. As you might imagine, it's fairly powerful. Alright, that fight was okay. Preferably both dogs get hit by the first windstorm, but again, it's not a big deal if it doesn't happen. Alright, so now we just have a... Technically it's supposed to be a puzzle, but... oh shoot. Accidentally used an item as Yuffie instead of Sonon. My bad. But again, we were waiting for the conveyor thing to move anyway, so it's not actually a big deal. Coming up, we have the Levrikon Fight. It's basically just a overgrown bird. But the strategy for that fight is going to include us building ATB and using Sync Art of War, and then while it's recoiling from that, we're going to actually throw our shuriken onto the Levrikon and then run to the exit. So the shuriken will slowly do damage to it, and since we're in the fight, we can actually move slightly faster, so it's easier for us to move to the exit in the middle of the fight, and it's much faster as well than beating him. On top of that, we also get to build ATB, so hopefully by the time we get to the exit, we'll be dead. I mean, sure enough, we'll have enough ATB to deal the final windstorm, and then Sonon follows up with a fire. So that was overall a very good warehouse fight. No fight went crazy wrong. Again, the Horn Crypt Shade was a little bad, but we managed to stagger him and finish him off with a Sync Art of War, so not bad. Unfortunately, this is another fairly long section with not a whole lot to do. Obviously perfect for donations, but in general we just want to be grabbing items. It's basically just a long auto-scroller with nothing for us to do. There are specific items that we want to get, but again, especially in this case, our high potions are actually fairly low, but overall this would be the perfect time for donations. Overall though, since we don't have donations, I'm just going to heal up, since we don't need MP for the rest of the chapter. And we actually get a MP refill at the beginning of the next chapter, so we're just going to use that to heal instead of high potions, since we are running a little bit low. Our RNG is not great, yeah, we're really not getting much of anything. Again, this is kind of what I was talking about before, where item management isn't super tight, but you take a lot of damage and then don't get a whole lot of high potions, it can be a little bit worrying, but as long as we get the golden crates coming up, it's not a huge deal. There's basically 3 crates in there, 3 crates in there, and they all have fairly good items. We also want this one here, which I believe has a turbo ether. Oh. There we go. Turbo ethers completely refill your MP. They're a very powerful item, as you can imagine. But just on the right here, we want to open up the conveyor when we can actually aim for the middle box. As they slowly fall down, we basically just want to hit the middle one for this one. But for the one on the left, we want to hit all of them preferably. It's, again, not a huge deal, but how low our high potions are. Okay, nice. We definitely want as many extras as we can get, so 9 high potions, 3 megas, 5 ethers, 2 ethers, 2 elixirs. Nice. So we should be fairly set. Again, unless something goes really disastrous, but hopefully that doesn't happen. Alright, so now we have another menu coming up. We're going to basically swap me and Sonan's elemental materia, so instead of shooting fire, he'll start shooting thunder. And we also want to steal the first strike materia from Sonon. The first strike materia is basically how we've kept Sonan's ATB high without the fact that without being able to control him, but at this point we needed it just a little bit more than he does. We're also going to set our customizations for the rest of the run. We're going to equip Thundara, despite the fact that we won't actually have it equipped, but we will have it later in the run. Have to wait for them to finish their conversation before I can actually do the menu. Just waiting for that.
Let's keep it tight, boss. Can't afford any more mistakes. GG's life depends on it.
Understood.
Alright, and... Alright, decent enough menu. So yeah, the first strike materia is very important for this upcoming boss fight, the giant centipede fight. This fight is not too difficult, but you can lose a lot of time if you screw up the opening strat, so that's really why we want the first strike. So, with that opening, we are able to actually pressure him and stop him from moving, which then allows us to beat up on him and do specifically 3 Art of Wars. That immediately gets him into his second phase. Well, I say immediately, we actually do have to wait for him to move into his phase, and unfortunately we can't do any extra damage. But we can build up ATB, and we can use the Lightning Ninjutsu ability, which naturally, as I said before, fuses our regular attacks with lightning. And that's definitely important. It's not actually important for our regular attacks though. We're also just going to use a high potion to heal up Yuffie, because again, our damage is based on our HP at this point thanks to our accessory. It's not actually, but yeah, as I was saying, the Lightning Ninjutsu doesn't actually boost our regular attack that much because he's actually not weak to lightning. But what it does do is it also boosts our Banishment ability, which is the special ability of the shuriken we currently have equipped. Oh no, I just screwed up really badly. That was bad. Okay, so I was supposed to do regular Windstorm there. I accidentally did Sync Windstorm because I was still synced up with Sona, which is a little annoying, but it's actually what dealt with it fairly quickly. Alright, here we go. Now he's on the ground, we can hit him with Sync Art of War and send him into his next phase. So the Banishment ability, that, like I was talking about, is an ability that scales with how many ATB abilities you've used, and the more ATB abilities you've used, the more powerful it is. And as we so far used 3 Art of Wars, 1 Lightning Jutsu, and 1 Sync Windstorm, it is fairly powerful. This completely ends that first phase. Combine that with the fact that it's also thunder infused, again from the lightning ninjutsu, which at that point in the fight does become his weakness. It ends up doing quite a bit of damage. So, very good for boss fights, as you might imagine. We'll definitely be seeing it again. It's definitely overall one of the best reasons to have this shuriken equipped.
Can't believe them. You stay away from that factory.
And with that, that's more or less Chapter 1 done. Again, this is probably the last place for donations. We have a little bit of time at the start of Chapter 2, but Chapter 2 overall is very fast-paced. So, there won't be a whole lot of time once we get past that opening of Chapter 2, so now would definitely be a good time.
Boss, I don't think we'll be back here anytime soon.
I think we're good here.
And Chapter 1 is done. Nice. But yeah, that was a pretty good Chapter 1 overall, for sure. Now, Chapter 2 is going to include us heading into the Shinra headquarters. Try to find a special materia. Spoiler alert, we don't actually end up finding it. I'm actually going to use this little bit to break some of the boxes to hopefully get a few more high potions, because like I said, we're actually on the low side. Unfortunately, we can't skip this dialogue by saving and loading because we can't actually get into our regular menu. If we press pause here, it just brings up just a paused screen. It doesn't let us access our menu, unfortunately. But again, good place for donations.
That's my master you're talking about. Friendly off him a little.
You know what? Let's drop it. Not exactly my favorite topic. It's only gonna make me mad.
Now we want to get into position for the next fight. You have Scarlet over there, telling us all about her menacing plan. We basically, we have a few fights, try to collect data, quote unquote. And so we first want to start off with holding square here. Now do some ranged attacks. Go into lightning ninjutsu. Oh, okay. Alright. Overall decent enough fight. Thankfully none of the enemies actually attacked me, so that made it a little bit easier there. They all dogpiled on Sonnen, poor little guy. But thankfully he's a champ, he can take it. Yeah, this next fight's pretty quick. Going to deadly dodge into holding square. Again, very quick and easy fight. So this next fight, we basically want all the enemies to group up. And so hopefully we can hit multiple of them with one windstorm, but they like not to do that, so let's just hope it goes right. Ooh, good start. Ooh, very good start. Very nice fight. Very solid overall. So the way those enemies work is that basically when you attack their allies, they like to protect them with barrier, so we like to abuse that by just doing a few basic attacks. And then saving our ATB until they grouped up and then using Windstorm, but obviously sometimes they like to just not group up. But overall that fight went very well. Now we want Sonnen to hopefully not stop here if we positioned him right. We did, very nice. If you get a bit too close to that exit, he actually just stops until the dialogue is done, but... So the placement there was actually fairly specific. Alright, so now we have one quick menu just to swap the first strike back onto Sonnen for these next two fights, because again we want Sonnen to have full ATB, so we can do a team-up attack. Although our ATB was pretty bad there, that sucks. Ugh, that was a disaster. I meant to do sync Windstorm, not sync Art of War. Again, that ATB was unfortunately the lowest it could possibly be, so the strat didn't go quite as well, and then I panicked a little bit, I won't lie. But again, it's not a huge fight, thankfully. Just the two troopers, so thankfully we were able to improvise a little bit. Now we want to grab the Ninja Cannonball materia. This is a very powerful materia that kind of works, again, similar to how we're currently using First Strike, where if we equip it to Sonnen, we gain the Ninja Cannonball ability, which in turn allows us to build Sonnen's ATB by using the Ninja Cannonball attack, so that's obviously really nice, because up until this point we don't really have any control of how much ATB Sonnen has and whether or not he'll attack, but by doing this, we do, now since we're in combat, ooh, damn it, you can actually use some fairly specific movement by using now sync attacks. Since the first sync attack really pushes us forward, if we're not targeted on the enemies, we can move quite a distance there. Oof, this ATB is so bad. Okay, overall though, thankfully the enemy didn't attack, so this is actually decent enough fight. Now he's going to eject because we dealt enough damage. Very nice. That was actually a really good fight, despite the awful ATB. So yeah, ATB at the start of the fight is purely random. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot we can do about it. Generally speaking, unless you get 0 ATB, it doesn't make a huge difference, but you got some really low ATB rolls in those last 2 fights, unfortunately, but thankfully we're about to actually equip the first strike materia back onto Yuffie, so our ATB should be fine no matter what. And again, we're going to put the Ninja Cannonball materia onto Sona, and that should keep him sorted for ATB. And so, final menu of the game coming up. Nice. Now we want to attack, target the Grenadier, but we don't actually want to attack him. And the reason for that is because we want to attack the 3 guards on the left with Windstorm, but if we're targeting the Grenadier, then Sonnen will attack him with the synergy, because that's how the follow-up synergy works. It's based on whoever you're actually targeting, not who you actually hit. Alright, so now comes up one of the more finickiest fights of the run. Basically, we have 2 big troopers in a very small condensed area, and not a lot of room to move. So hopefully, yep, he doesn't move. Very nice. Now he's going to eject. Oof, I did get hit there, which is a problem. Uh-oh. Ooh, okay, thankfully. He's going to eject. Thankfully I didn't get hit there. And thankfully we can finish this off with a Sync Windstorm. Okay. I said thankfully a lot. I was very thankful to not die there, I suppose. Basically the way that fight works is those 2 troopers have a damage point where they will eject from their max. I'm actually going to use an elixir because we're a little low on HP, and I only actually need 1 elixir for later. I also want to try to heal up Sonnen. But basically that fight is, once you hit their certain attack threshold, they will eject and do a big AoE attack. That if you get hit by both of them, can definitely kill you, so... Again, probably the only fight where dying is like very likely, but a little sloppy, but again, we came out alive, so I'll take it. So these next couple of fights, you actually have an option of two separate fights. We actually always choose the option on the left, just because those happen to be the faster fights. There's no like difference in the elevator ride to the fights, it's just a funny coincidence. Alright, start off here, good start. Ooh, maybe not. Fortunately, that monodrive managed to put up its shield before you defeat it. And usually we defeat that first monodrive, and then the second one puts its shield up, and we have to deal with that, but it was a little out of whack, because I guess our damage rolls were just a little low. But overall, not a huge deal. The next upcoming fight is a sweeper fight. It's probably one of the harder strats in the game. It's not a huge fight overall, but the timing on between us getting the stagger and our using Sync Windstorm and Thunder is very tight and can be very reliant on both Yuffie and Sonnen's ATB, so hopefully this goes well. Very nice. Sonnen had just enough ATB. Although we don't have quite enough. What? Oh, no. Accidentally. I must have pressed Thunder just before I got my ATB. Oh well. Again, the rest of the fight went so well. But yeah, like I said, ATB is very strict in that fight. And if it doesn't go all... And he doesn't have a very long stagger meter, so... He doesn't stay in stagger for very long, so if you don't have enough ATB to use Sync Windstorm and then use Thunder, the fight can be fairly slow, but overall that was pretty good. In comparison to one of the harder fights, this is definitely one of the easier fights in the run. Arguably the easiest, I'd say. And they're all dead.
Well,
There's one windstorm. Cleans them all up. Again, why we choose this fight. Just much faster than the fight on the right. Although admittedly I don't actually remember what the fight on the right is at this point. Been a hot minute since I've done any of the other fights. This next fight's again fairly simple. It's mostly just ranged attacks into Windstorm to keep him not staggered, but to keep him pressured, I suppose, and stop him from really attacking. And nice. And also follows up with fire to help them keep deactivated. We're also going to do a animation cancel there by using block at the end of that third hit, because that third hit usually has a lot of end lag, but you can actually cancel it out with a block. Now, last but certainly not least is Death Wheel. It can be a bit of a pain. Again, very the speed of the fight is definitely based on Sonen's ATB. We use 2 Ninja Cannonballs to hopefully mitigate it, but if Sonen has no ATB, it can be a little sloppy. But basically, this enemy likes to move around a lot, so just have to react. Good start. It's a little slow, he got his barrier up, but that's fine. Cool, because single Windstorm thankfully goes right through the barrier. So overall, decent enough fight. And now we have Scarlet, the enemy that's been mocking us from afar. We finally get to kick her butt, teach her a lesson. Now overall, I think I'll just get a heal up Sonen. Make sure we're at full HP. The fight is fairly long and in-depth, so I probably won't be able to do too much commentary, but in short, we want to attack Scarlet in her mech in order to put the mech into pressure, which we then stagger with synchronized attacks, which we then deal a lot of damage, as you'll soon see. I want the perfect parry here. Ah, screwed up, that's unfortunate. Oof, and Sonen's ATB was definitely on the lower end. Alright. I just want to build ATB. Okay, unfortunately, since we took that little bit of extra damage, our damage in turn was a little bit low. But again, it shouldn't matter too much as long as this phase doesn't go badly. We're also now going to use the ATB menu for pretty much the first time, because we want to make sure we specifically hit Scarlet there. Now I want to do a Windstorm, and just in time in order to block the second laser. And now we're so far back that her extra attacks won't actually reach us, so we don't even have to worry about blocking them. We do some Windstorms on Scarlet, followed up by Sonen Fire, which then puts the mech into pressure. Now that's staggered, we want Sync Windstorm to get up to 240% stagger. And then finish off with Thunder Banishment. Boom. Flashy ending. So yeah, just again, somewhat similar to the Giant Centipede fight, where Thunder Banishment just does a lot of damage because it's fully maxed out, and Thunder is her weakness, plus combine that with the fact that she's on 240% stagger, it really kicks butt. These guys are a little finicky, they like to teleport away, case in point. Only so much we can do. Fire might actually finish that. No, not quite. Still, overall decent enough fight. Basically just want to hope they get hit by the Windstorm and group up and don't teleport, and then just swap targets so Sonnen hits them all fairly equally with his fire. But overall, decent fight. That first fight is literally just Windstorm. Not to say it, but this next fight, we want to get 2 Ninja Cannonballs, then use a Sync Windstorm in order to group them up. Despite them not being staggered, this still does really good damage. Now that they're grouped up, we can just finish them off with a regular Windstorm. Very nice. So full. Now we're just waiting for units to spawn. Now we want to throw the thing. 1, 2. Alright. Got them all in one. Very nice. Alright, so the Projector Fight coming up. Basically, there's the Projector boss, and he projects a enemy. In order to get at the Projector, we need to defeat that enemy, which then puts the Projector in stagger. And we wanted to try to defeat the Projector in 1 stagger, because otherwise the fight's pretty long. Now we want to put the Diabolic Creature into stun, or into stagger rather. Build up some ATB, but we actually don't want to kill it right away since we want to build up enough ATB in order to make sure we can kill the Projector in 1 stagger. We have enough for Sync Windstorm. While that's going off, we build up enough for Art of War, which is followed by Sonnen Fire. Very nice. If you don't beat him in that 1 stagger, you literally have to fight a second Diabolic Creature. So essentially just doubling the length of that fight. So very important. But it's not too tight overall. Especially if you do the strat right. Now we're actually on the final boss fight. Nero, who is very much a run killer. Again, hopefully since it's a marathon run, it shouldn't be too much of an issue if we lose a bit of time. But we actually want to start off with Windstorm. Hopefully he doesn't give us Binding Talons, because that's the one attack we can't put him into pressure. But by doing a Windstorm at the start of the fight, we can actually put him into pressure, as you can see. And then followed up, and then Sonnen follows up with his fire, which actually keeps him in pressure for even longer. Which we then use Sync Attack to put him into stagger and deal enough damage, and hopefully, nice, build up enough ATB for the next fight to immediately do the same thing. So if we don't have a Windstorm for the next fight, it can be a problem, but thankfully we built up enough ATB. We also specifically want 3 staggers in the fight, because this is actually the only fight in the game where we're really going to use the our limit, which the way limits work is basically you take enough damage, you build up your limit, but also if you deal stagger, it builds it by 1/3. So we do 3 staggers, we get a limit. So we're trying to stagger him for the first, second, and third fight, and then use the limit to finish him off in the first fight. But of course, Nero always has other plans for us. He likes to break out of pressure. He likes to just tank the Windstorm with Binding Talons, for example. Hopefully. Okay, very good. Fire. Now we're going to Sonnen. Okay. Thought Sonnen might. Oh no. No. Okay. Sonnen was acting very strange there, so I thought for sure Nero was going to break out, but thankfully not. Okay, Sonnen's ATB is actually very low, which is not a which is a problem. My ATB is thankfully full, but hopefully that shouldn't be a huge issue. Again, we want to react to what attack he gives us here, and then hopefully follow up with a Windstorm. Oh, got Binding Talons. Damn it, that's a problem. I screwed up. This fight is now going to go to crap. Okay, got him into pressure. Will this stagger? Oh, it did. Thank God. Considering the strat screwed up, I'm more than happy with that. Okay, so we got the stagger, which gives us the limit, and he's now going into his final phase. Again, it might not have looked it, but that was really scary there. Thankfully he didn't go really crazy. So he's going to do 2 big finishes. Going to aim at his wings here. And use our limit bloodbath. And by attacking the wings here, we actually automatically put him into stagger again, while also simultaneously timed, by the way. While also simultaneously hitting himself with the final hit while he's in stagger. So it does a huge amount of damage and finishes him off. And yeah, like I said, that's time. Sorry, I was kind of explaining the fight, got a little too into it. Got to say time. But yeah, that's the episode Intermission, aka Yuffie DLC, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Overall, I think it's a really fun run. Lots of variety in all the different strats and the enemies. Again, much more, not just much more fast-paced, but also much shorter than a lot of Final Fantasy speedruns. So that definitely is, I would say, fairly good for a marathon. But yeah, I'm not really sure what to say here. Please pick my run. I would be very happy. Thank you, please. I love you all. That's all I have to say. Bye-bye.